the exit doors to be closed, please, so that we can have smooth flow of the session without any interruption from outside. Thank you very much indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going ahead with the proceedings of the session, requesting everybody to be seated. May I also request for the exit doors to be closed. Thank you. May I invite on stage our distinguished speaker for this session, Shri A. Balan, Member Planning CA. Let's put our hands together to welcome sir. Inviting Shri R.P. Gupta, Chairman and Managing Director, SECI. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Inviting Shri Sudeep Jain, Additional Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Inviting session moderator Shri Sandeep Narang, Director Strategy and Transaction, ENY. Warm welcome, sir. Inviting Shri Pradeep Kumar Das, Chairman and Managing Director, IREDA. Warm welcome. Inviting Shri Shivanand Nimbargi, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Ayana Power. Inviting Shri Vipul Tuli, Chairman South Asia and Chief Executive Officer, Hydrogen Business and Middle East, Semcor Industries. May I also invite Shri Pinaki Bhattacharya, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Ampin Energy Transition. Inviting Shri Rakesh Khetan, Chief Financial Officer, Mahindra Sustain, and Shri Akshay Hiranandani, Chief Executive Officer, Serentica Renewables. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to session 5 on capacity planning and regulatory framework for renewable energy by 2047, building blocks for energy transition. In this session, we will explore key enabling factors for accelerating the transition to clean energy, address the challenges, and discuss the potential solutions for scaling up the renewable energy in India. And we are honored to begin today's session with a context setting presentation by Shri A. Balan, Member Planning, Central Electricity Authority. Sir has over 34 years of experience in the power sector and is currently serving as Member Planning in CA. His career began in 1990 at the Power System Training Institute, where he contributed to capacity building program for state electricity board engineers and worked on various technology and training initiatives, including the computer programming, SCADA and EMS, and dispatcher training simulator. Sir will provide an overview of India's renewable energy expansion scenario leading up to 2047, focusing on the key drivers and regulatory frameworks that will support this transition. His insights will certainly form the foundation for the discussions that follow. So let's welcome and put our hands together for Sri A. Balan for the context setting. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar to all. On behalf of CEA, I welcome the distinguished panelists in the dais and the experienced participants for this session on capacity planning, regulatory framework for RE with 2047, building blocks for energy transition. So I would like to give the context setting on the following aspects: the need for capacity planning, the need for regulatory framework, and expected outcome. The need for capacity planning, as we know that the population is growing, so they need power. Economy also growing, and it will drive the demand. Extreme weather conditions, so the population need power, that is the demand. So all these factors and other factors also will drive the demand. So to meet this demand, we need the generation capacity to be added periodically to the grid. So that capacity planning is a long-term investment plan, because the gestation period of any power plant, mostly conventional, is longer, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. RE also, even if you want to install RE also, you have to do weather study for 1 or 2 years. Then only can set up the any RE power plant. So that also taking long time. And transmission planning, transmission lines to evacuate this power also need more than 18 months or 24 months based on the line distance, all those things now. And also we have the commitment for meeting 50% of the installed capacity to be from non-fossil sources by 2030. It is a international commitment given by India to the UN. So this also needs energy transition. So from fossil to non-fossil fuel. Then we have the Viksit Bharat 2047 vision for, for achieving a developed India by 2047. So this also will drive the manufacturing and other equipment production activities. So we need lot of power. So it is long-term plan, 2047, only the long-term plan. And also we have long-term target also to achieve net zero by 2070. This also India's long-term goal and announced in many forums internationally. So this also we have to achieve. So 2070 is very long time, because our demand is based on the weather and other technological advancements. So prediction, how to predict, that is a challenge, really challenge. So for this capacity planning, normally first we do the demand forecast, demand estimate, state wise and aggregate we do by and countries country wide. So there are a lot of assumptions you have to make for electrical vehicle, green hydrogen, and data centers, and also agricultural loads and various government schemes also there, pump sets. So all those things are we have to predict for next in immediate future, okay, but long term how to predict. And also because it is investment plan, it should be precise, optimal. It should be optimized for the cost. So this is challenge for all of us. So we have resource adequacy plan for optimizing your resources. So this plan has to meet base load requirement and peak load requirement and solar, non-solar hour demand also. It varies state wise and region wise and country wise. So this plan we have the guidelines to fulfill the national peak also and state peak also. Both the peaks you have to meet by having firm resources tie up, or we can say uh, commitment. But we have generation field also different type. We have many types are there. So energy transition means here reduce the fossil fuel sources and increase the non-fossil. That is all solar, wind, and other biofuel, all those things. Hydro also, this nuclear also is coming up now. So fossil fuel like coal and lignite thermal should be slowly phased down or phased out. So this is called we normally we term energy transition. Still we have to get the proper definition of energy transition. What is the energy transition? We have to define accordingly. We have to move around. The once non-fossil fuel is going up, resource in the grid, how to integrate them? That is what integrate. Now we are having issues, integrate issues in many grids. Trippings are there. 1,000 megawatt very common. 4,000 megawatt, 5,000, 6,000 megawatt, 7,000 also came last year. Suddenly lost. So how to manage the grid? From where you get 7,000 megawatt, ramp up within a minute, how to ramp up? So those things are there. And also this RE is not dispatchable and variable also. So we have to manage with storage to make it dispatchable. Now we have RE, RTC or FDRE, all the concepts are coming up. So this will give completely reliable and stable RE power supply to the grid. Quality also very important. We have this RE, IBR, inverter based resources are introducing harmonics in the system. Any semiconductor device, it is operating non-linearly, will give the harmonics in the system. So quality also very important. We have lot. It is quality of supply should be ensured 24/7 into throughout the year. Then also we have the under RA plan, we have the renewable energy purchase obligation. So this and all you have to be studied under RA and prepare the generation resources to meet the future demand. Next 10 years, we have next 10 years plan. So 10 years you have to have the tie up. And also transmission and distribution planning also based on the generation planning. So once you finalize the generation planning resources and transmission and load centers, based on load center, they will plan the transmission lines. Need for regulatory framework for RE. The requirement of RE is we have the international commitments, meeting the climate goals. We already discussed also. And year 2030, we have the our IRP division, a published document, very good document, much referred document, that is optimal generation mix. Version 2.0 has been released. So it talks about the optimal generation mix by the year 2030. And NEP is also having details for 2032. Then we have the requirements for 2047 as a developed country, and also 2070 target, net zero targets, very important target. Where all the countries are, they are doing 2050. Europe and US, all other countries 2050. China is 2060. So already we see is doing studies also on this also. So 2050 scenario, 2060, 2050 scenario, how to meet if it is 2060 or 2070, that net zero, that also we are studying. So the huge task is ahead for us. So RE penetration, developed country, all net zero goals, all will drive the RE penetration into the grid. So we need to control these RE sources. We need the regulatory framework, meeting the commitments and targets timely. This is very important. We have the first time charging guidelines issued by the on Grid India. So we have a lot of issues are coming up to meet the deadlines, because many are not having the reactive power compensation and other requirements by the grid code and CA regulations, all are is not in place. It takes a lot of time. So it should be fine tuned and also amended if possible, so that they all come in time. Increasing RE penetration into grid is a challenge, really challenging only. Yes, most of us we do the static stability studies or dynamic stability studies we are doing, but as a power system simulator, which was there in Bangalore, it is in real time. Suppose some event takes place, any generation tripping, what will be the next event for next 1 hour, 2 hours? The simulator will simulate if we have the proper modeling of the machine's generator at transient level. So that also should be studied. We have a lot of work. Reliability also. How reliable? Because we know that the RE is variable and intermittent. So reliability also, RERTC, FDRE constructs have to be designed and implemented along with battery also. Battery also will support the grid. Battery and storage, pumped storage also. Security is very important. Security of the grid is very important. Because once you penetrate more and more RE into grid, can you imagine a grid without any conventional power plant? So inertia, we are losing inertia because we don't have much synchronous machines added to the grid. And moreover, any new machines coming up also 500, 800 megawatt, 600 megawatt. Also, they have sleek rotor designs. So mass is less. So kinetic energy is less. So that on that count also, you don't have inertia. So how to meet the inertia, synthetic inertia, all they are talking about, but should be readily available. The constructs or whatever models should be readily available for the grid operator and other transmission planners to implement. Making obligatory to generate and consumer RE power. This also we have many regulations. RPO regulations are there. Even RGO also, RGO generator application also, they have to generate this much RE based on their fossil fuel capacity. Bundling schemes, many schemes are there. And also we need to have the framework for offering incentives also to RE in order to promote and attract investments. So for these aspects, we should have the very unambiguous, clearly, and not stable also, not frequently changing, frequently amending. The regulatory framework should be there for RE penetration into the grid so that we can achieve our RE goals. So we have already LCD Act and policy and LCD plan. This all will give us the overall umbrella guidelines, and we have TARI policy also we are having. Rules by governments. So according to the Act, central and state governments can frame the rules for various purposes to supplement the Act. Then also we have regulations by CEA and regulatory commissions on tariff aspects and other aspects. This also we are having to manage the RE. Standards also very, very important. Where any developer, they want standard to plan his generating plan or transmission line or distribution systems. So we have Bureau of Indian Standards and IEC there, and we are adopting IEC and IEEE also. There are standards for equipment, design, manufacturing, testing, and installation, O&M of the equipment. So the standards are very, very essential for quality, for checking the quality of ensuring the quality of material, component, and equipment and machinery. And safety also can be ensured if they follow standards. So we can ensure the safety of reliability of the equipment, and also standards will help us to have the interoperability between various manufacturers. So in this session, we would like to have this kind of outcome. This is our wish list. We don't know how much time is there, and these are the generic only. Session moderator and panelists can decide. Requirements of policy, regulatory measures, if anything required, that can be recommended. Faster way of achieving solar wind best targets, how to achieve quickly. We have to find out the ways. Any bottlenecks are there, any clearance issues are there, that should be ironed out. And also the challenge is meeting green demand for green hydrogen, ammonia, electrical vehicle, and data centers. And also there was a talk about that cooking also. If you make electrical cooking, so how to manage the peak load? Peak loads are there, morning peak, evening peak. Whether our transmission network will adequate to handle that much load, that also we have to find out and design. Any bottlenecks would address. Enforcing safety aspects, this is also very, very important. Using modern tools for quality work. If you happen to see any commissioning installation work in India, tower erection, transformer erection, or any erections you have, I happen to have that opportunity to visit number of factories, number of generating plants, substations. So there is a tremendous scope for improvement of safety aspect. So I was an electrical inspector for more than 76 years. So we know the ground realities. India has to go a long way to improve the safety of the equipment, so that it will not cause any harm to the operators and public. We are not using modern tools, the quality of work suffers and leading to the accidents and unsafety systems. And also incentive schemes for any PLA schemes, schemes for supply chain issues, lot of chain issues we are having in RE, in components getting, all the things, battery. Then for these things, we can have if any possible, any use cases and business models, actionable points. These are the expected outcome from this session after our discussions. So now the floor is open. I hand over to the moderator, Shri Sandeep Marangi. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. But before we go ahead with the panel discussion session, we would like to present before you a video message by Mr. Ganesh Kothavare, President and Head of Power Distribution Solutions Business. Can we have the video message, please?
It is an honor to be part of this special moment as we celebrate the Golden Jubilee of Central Electricity Authority. My heartiest congratulations to CA and whole team for this milestone. For many years, CA has been the cornerstone in shaping the Indian power sector, ensuring delivery of reliable and affordable electricity to all. As we look into the future, achieving energy independence by 2047 is a vital element for the Vikasit Bharat vision. Particularly the Panchamrit commitment announced at COP26, which is the foundation for greener and sustainable future. The ever-growing demand for sustainable energy is the driving force behind the government's aim to build 500 gigawatt by 2030. I'm proud to say India has achieved fourth position globally in terms of installed green energy capacity. However, the larger goal can only be achieved if we collectively address some of the key challenges, such as integrating the renewable to the existing grid, as renewable sources are intermittent and geographically dispersed, which requires significant upgrades in grid infrastructure. Energy storage is one of the pressing needs to ensure the stability and reliability of the green energy produced. All of this needs a resilient and robust infrastructure, investment in smart technologies, research and development, and the development of skilled workforce with education and training in these areas to ensure we have the right talent in this transition. The next generation of engineers, researchers, and technicians will play a vital role in building an energy secured India. Consistent regulatory support is very critical to achieve these goals. Long-term policies, incentives for local production, regulatory support around grid integration, and energy storage would immensely help in achieving these goals. India's global footprint is rewarding. We are actively pursuing international cooperation in the power sector to achieve our energy transition goals, helping the country achieve ambitious target for renewable energy and grid modernization. As we celebrate the golden jubilee of CA, let's look forward to continued collaboration towards building these goals, keeping sustainability as a foundation of our actions. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much indeed. And we now move into our panel discussion. And to lead the discussions, we are pleased to have with us Sri Sandeep Narang, Director Strategy and Transaction EY, who has 17 years of experience in the energy sector, consulting, and works closely with central and state government agencies in the areas of policy design and implementation support. Is currently leading the capacity building activities for the CPSU in the context of energy transition, focusing on competency assessment and talent management. Is also implementing certification programs for state nodal agencies in the areas of innovative solar applications and green hydrogen. He is also leading vocational course development in these emerging areas with IIT Roorkee. And we are also privileged to have an esteemed panel of experts, each of whom brings valuable expertise to today's discussion. We have with us Sri R.P. Gupta, Chairman and Managing Director, Solar Energy Corporation of India, who has been a driving force behind the solar energy development in India. And under his leadership, SECI has pioneered innovative solar power projects, making him a key voice in today's discussion. Sri Sudeep Jain, Additional Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, has played a crucial role in shaping India's renewable energy policies at the national level. His insights on policy support and regulatory framework will be vital to understanding how the government is facilitating the energy transition. Sri Pradeep Kumar Das, Chairman and Managing Director, Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency, is at the helm of IREDA, which plays a pivotal role in financing renewable energy projects across India. Shri Shivananda Nimbargi is the Managing Director and CEO, Ayana Renewable Power, a company that is at the forefront of renewable energy development in India, and his insights into challenges and opportunities in the private sector will certainly provide a holistic view of the renewable energy landscape. Shri Vipul Tuli, Chairman South Asia and CEO, Hydrogen Business and Middle East, Semco Industries, his perspective on the role of hydrogen and offshore energy resources in India's renewable energy transition will add value depth to the discussion. Sri Pinaki Bhattacharya, Managing Director and CEO, MPIN Energy Transition, is driving MPIN Energy's efforts in scaling up renewable energy in India and globally. Sri Rakesh Khaitan, Chief Financial Officer, Mahindra Assistant, and Sri Akshay Hiranandani, CEO Serentica Renewables, which focuses on integrating renewable energy technologies for a sustainable future. With those words, I now hand over to Sri Sandeep Narang to lead the panel discussion and delve into these important topics with our esteemed panelists. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very warm welcome. Good evening to everyone. This is a very power-packed panel and perhaps the last of the day. I think we have about 6 p.m. Close time, so we have about 40-45 minutes, which I'm sure is not sufficient given the distinguished panelists that we have today. But first of all, thank you, Mr. Balan, for setting the context. I think that you've laid the floor open for a lot of questions. Let me start with the discussion with Mr. R.P. Gupta, CMD, SECI. Sir, a very warm welcome. And sir, we would like you to just touch upon your initial remarks on you are spearheading a large PSU which has significant role in this overall RE transition. So how CPSUs can be effective in driving energy transition at large across the country?
Good afternoon and congratulations to CA on its Golden Jubilee year. The CPSUs actually have had historically very important role, first of all, in Indian economy because the way our economic policy was designed in the initial stages of our say, after the years of independence. In almost every sector, public sector played a major role. So there is no wonder that energy sector was also part of it. Additionally, in the power sector, it was almost completely in the public sector. The state electricity board, they had a complete hold over generation, transmission, distribution, right up to I think 1995 when in generation was the first private sector initiative which took place. Later on, the dismantling, of course, took place, and a private sector was permitted in large percentage in generation. Transmission was also opened up, and distribution, of course, still remains a monopoly, but not necessarily monopoly of the government. Now, it is in this context that the CPSUs have had a very important role. First of all, the state board did not have the enough capacity for planning and execution and also the financial capabilities. So the central PSUs like NTPC, Power Grid, NHPC, they they all contributed in it. And of course, not to forget CA, which helped them uh, in all kind of planning which the states required, apart from coordinating the central role in it. Now, when it comes to renewable energy, before that, uh, the central PSUs also had to come in because the financial conditions of distribution companies or before that state board, because of the tariff distortions which are prevalent in electricity sector, they allowed a major role for central PSUs giving some sort of financial guarantees, and that now whole thing is carried over in the renewable energy era also. But I'm very happy to note that as far as renewable energy is concerned, it is almost 100% in the private hands as far as generation is concerned. That's a very welcome development. And I would have been very happy if central PSUs had no role in the electricity sector. The state distribution companies and the state sector planning department would have been strong enough and capable enough to leave no role for the CPSUs. After all, the CPSUs like us, they are they are just because either the capability is missing or the developers or the investors, they have they don't have complete trust and faith in the payment security from the discom companies directly, from the state directly. So that is where our role comes in. I'll be happy if that role goes, because that will ultimately bring down the prices for the consumer, which is the ultimate goal. But I see that this role is going to remain for a very long time. I'm also very happy to note there are discoms and the states which are not only developing this capability to plan for their own, and also they are financially sound enough, their investors have confidence. I hope that number increases. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now just move to Additional Secretary Shri Sudeep Jainji. Sir, you're at the helm of policy making, and I think what we have achieved as a country is a result of some of the marquee policies that Government of India has rolled out. Sir, from a 2047 perspective, can you throw some light on MNRE's plans towards spearheading energy transition by 2047? We know what you're doing in 2030, but beyond from a long-term perspective. And also, sir, if in your opinion, what could be the role of new emerging energy technologies, sir?
Thank you, Sandeep. So, country as a whole, we are aware of our targets of 2030 that we need to reach 500 gigawatt in non-fossil capacity by 2030. We have crossed 200, so another 300 we have to do. But 2047, the projections, the demand projections, and these are subject to change. The projections primarily work out to roughly 2000 gigawatt of total installed capacity that the country may need. And if we have to achieve energy independence by 2047, also if we have to achieve net zero much before 2070, then power sector has to become net zero much earlier. And if we look at 2047, if we target as the goal to become completely non-fossil capacity, then we need 2000 gigawatt of installed RE capacity to or non-fossil capacity to come up by then. So on those lines, while it's early, we definitely need to keep working in terms of the transmission capacity, the grid integration capacity, what kind of challenges even to reach 500 gigawatt we have, those challenges may further compound, increase, unless new and new technologies and more intelligent ways of integrating to the grid keeps coming up. So when you are saying what could be the new emerging technologies, we have to bet a big way on storage and multiple innovations in the storage sector, because without storage it would not be possible to keep multiplying inform renewable energy. We'll have to find ways of adding storage at much cheaper cost. There is very encouraging work which is happening. We are seeing a lot of developments, but that work has to continue. Simultaneously, we'll also have to keep looking at how do we intelligently move demand to match the supply. Even on a day-to-day basis, can there be incentives in the system whereby automatically the consumer moves away from the high or the low generation timings to high generation timings? So many such things with the innovative use of artificial intelligence, with new pilots, with models, business models such as peer-to-peer trading. All these have to keep emerging, and we have to keep supporting these experiments to see that we reach an optimum level where the demand kind of chases when the supply is there, and at the same time we keep adding storage to it.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Mr. R.P. Gupta, picking cues from what Mr. Jan just said, uh, he talked about, for example, P2B trading. So, in general, if you look at energy storage technologies and some of the technologies that he talked about, role of market-based instruments, we have the private sector. I'll come to them as well. Private sector keeps saying that we need more market-based instruments. And at SECI, you have already done a lot of work. So going forward, sir, what is your view on the new market-based instruments that this sector can, get from agencies or from MNRE or SECI? And any views around the existing market-based instruments like RGO or any other instrument? Any thoughts on market-based instruments, sir?
See, having been in Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, I am normally against plenty of regulations. Regulations and obligations should be kept to the minimum. I would have loved to simply have the emission norms which gradually keep on declining on different sectors, rather than having renewable purchase obligation, then hydrogen purchase obligation, then storage obligations. See, the moment you fragment in different component, you are putting additional cost with each of these component, which is not good. So ideally, I would expect that each discom is given some sort of renewable purchase obligation and just left at that. They will themselves work out what kind of storage requirement is there, what what is the nature of storage which they want, whether it's PSP, whether it is a battery or the new storage technologies which are coming up, and also on the generation side, whether they want wind, whether they want solar, what combination of this they want. This should be ideally left to the discoms, but unfortunately, that capacity in quite a few of discoms not being there, it is we who decide that what product to offer, and in that we come out with different combination of product. Of course, we talk to the discoms also and try to tailor our tenders and our requirement as per their requirement. But it will keep on varying. It will depend on which technology, what is the cost of that technology, what is the cost of the different storage solutions, what are the regulations pertaining to the transmission cost. So that also adds to overall cost and in optimizing the cost for them. So it's a very dynamic field, and we will have to be alert and keep on experimenting with different kind of products and combination.
Thank you, sir. So minimal regulation is what you are hinting at, rather than enforcing. Enforcing is not something you'll be promoting market-based instruments. Mr. Chen, I have a follow-up question on what you said. Uh, Given that we are heading towards more market-based instruments and new technologies, sir, what is we've seen supply chain issues. So, what is your view on component manufacturing with respect to RE? Because that remains a big uncertainty. New technologies means imports. The entire supply chain ecosystem. We've already seen with solar. Thankfully, now you have a policy for solar ALMM. But what about future? So, any thoughts on component manufacturing from a policy perspective, sir?
So, very pertinent question. Uh, Manufacturing as a whole, if we see, especially on the solar sector, it's of a very recent origin. We started manufacturing only very recently. Now, today, in terms of solar modules, we already have 60 plus gigawatt of capacity in place. In fact, we have much more which is in the pipeline. We are confident in a year or so we should be having 100 gigawatt of capacity already in place. Many of these are also working towards the backward integration, not just module, but cell, wafer, ingots, and polysilicon to come in place. However, if we have to really become energy independent, we also have to look at having our own technologies. Today, we are dependent on most of these to be imported. The technology per se, we are importing and then setting up the manufacturing units. We have to encourage R&D so that our own technology matures and we are able to be self-reliant on technology also. There are some good work which are happening, like in perovskite, we are seeing some very encouraging lab scale work that is happening. We have to keep encouraging and we have to have collaboration between the industry and the government to see that more and more such R&D keeps taking place. Simultaneously, component manufacturing also, other than just the major components of solar modules or wind turbines, we have to look at the entire supply chain and keep looking at how do we encourage. We are seeing a lot of manufacturing coming up, especially in solar, almost whether it is solar glass or whether it is EVA, backsheets, aluminum frames, many such units are coming up. We have to keep encouraging and have policies which can continue to encourage this manufacturing. But focus needs to be clearly now towards building the technology, building indigenous technology where we can be totally reliant, as well as we can look at the global market as the place where these technologies can be used. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'd like to invite CMD IREDA, Mr. Pradeep. Sir, we heard you in the earlier session, not very specific to finance questions. We've already heard your views, but this is more about much at a larger role. You heard Mr. Gupta talked about, role of PSUs, CPSUs. If you look at the financing side of it, you see the kind of capital that is available today, at least the domestic INR capital that we are talking about, is largely PSUs again, and maybe partly NBFCs, REC, PFC along with IREDA, and even the bank side is all largely PSU led. There's very little private sector debt capital available. So from a PSU finance, you represent a large organization into this business. What role do you see for IREDA, given that there's a massive requirement of capital raising and deployment in these advanced technologies that Mr. Gupta and Mr. Jan talked about, sir?
Yeah. First of all, very good evening to you all, and thank to Ghanshyamji and his team for inviting me and giving me back-to-back 2 sessions to speak. So it's a huge honor, and I think I'm covering up what I missed last year. Some of your program. See what I perceive CA. I'll take 1 more minute on CA perspective. What I understand with CA is they have the competency and capability to plan the capacities to transform the traffic management system of Daryaganj or Karolbagh to Noida Greater Noida Expressway. When I say the traffic management system of Daryaganj and this reminds me 2.5 to 3 decades back what the electricity sector was suffering. We're suffering from one-third syndrome. If you plan to set up X unit of capacity, one-third you cannot achieve. If you generate X amount plan, you cannot generate one third of it. If you transmit X, you lose again one third of it. If you distribute X, then you lose one third of it. So every stage we used to have loss of one third of it. So this one third syndrome was there. From a 50, more than 50% of AT&C losses, we have come down to 15%. The major role has been played by CEA, Central Electricity Authority, being a major policymaker, regulator, whatever you nomenclature you can say. And today is their golden jubilee celebration. It's a huge occasion, and I think we should have a huge round of applause for Mr. Ghanshyamji and his team. Now coming back to your question of financing. All along we have been focusing on renewable energy development. Finance was not at all a problem. We have considered 100% FDI. So 100% window is open to come forward. And these FDIs are not coming here to invest for charity or to support for us development. As a finance person, I believe they are coming here to generate ROI. And their ROI is much bigger than what they are getting in their economy. So therefore, we are confident of continuing the same kind of support from them in the time to come. 2000 till 2030, we'll be keeping on focusing on RE development. 30 to 47, much more will be on green infrastructure. IREDA has been doing RE development in the country since 37 years. Last year, we have also got the license for infrastructure. Another segment where the financing will be required, that is B2C, that is retail segment. We got a approval from ministry last week where we will be imparting to that space because nobody is looking that space so much, because we are focusing more on larger projects, because that is this 100 crore, 1 crore households renovalization, solarization is a key problem today after announcement none other than our passionate honorable Prime Minister himself to have it, but bankability is becoming an issue. So we need to work together. Fund is not a constraint there, but only making the project bankable. Organization like IREDA, who has doing this business since 37 years, we have financed more than sanctioned more than 2 lakh 8,000 crores, financed more than 1 lakh 35,000 crores. Our cumulative write-off is just 214 assistant crore till 30th of September, which communicates that renewable is not risky, renewable is challenging but doable if you maintain that discipline approach in your project development. And in the time to come, till 30, we have envisaged around 30 lakh crores of investment in the country. As of now, if you see whatever investment has happened, 35% have come from NBFC space, 50% came from bond market, and 15% came from other agencies. But history is changing now. We are shifting from electron to molecule. We are shifting from tariff-based to shorter duration contract for the sale price. So there, the question of doing the due diligence, evaluation, and risk assessment, risk mitigation will be a big challenge by the lender. The developer is setting up a project which will have a life of 20 to 25 years. If you take the example of electrolyzer manufacturing or green hydrogen or its derivatives manufacturing setup, or even the solar component manufacturing setup. So we just talked about this component manufacturing. We are financing in that space, particularly for this cell and module since last 27 years in the country. It is now the thrust is being given that we need to become Atmanirbhar Bharat. We need to not only have the capacity of manufacturing module here from the cell or from wafer to cell, we need to have a complete integrated approach. We need to have that capacity of having polysilicon to ingot, ingot to wafer to cell and cell to module. All the big players, they have gone for backward integration. Since cell to module has become a vanilla, the new player will come in there. Competition will happen there. But when the backward integration who are going, they are taking the risk. They are taking the challenge. So wherever the risk and challenge will be there, as a lender, as per the regulator RBI, we have to load the risk premium into it. The moment we load the risk premium, the bankability of the project become questionable. This sounds a repeat, which have heard me in the past session, but that is the hard reality. But if we have to become a developed economy, which we are determined to become by 2047, we need 1.25 times of our GDP growth with respect to the energy requirement. And that requires a huge investment. 285 lakh to 345 lakh crores of rough estimate we have made in IREDA, which will be required for financing for the entire energy requirement in the country by 2047. It's a very big figure. But since it carries a series of assumptions, we are crystallizing till 2030. Our initial target is 2030. Once we achieve 2030 target, then the level of confidence what we'll carry and the asymmetry of information what is there in our assumption, if you can eliminate that, then certainly the lenders will come forward, the developer will come forward, the speed and development, the RE and energy transition in the country is going to happen. I'll give one example. When SECI decided to do the CPSC bidding, the biggest issue was liquidity, where from the bank guarantee will come. IREDA designed a product of LOC, LOU, POI that was not there in the industry, that was not there in the banking system. That enabled the bidder to take the LOC letter from us, simple a letter, submit to the bank, take against that letter a bank guarantee. I'm giving one rigid example. That was for CPSC bidding we came forward. Similarly, other kind of requirement, whenever from any new kind of business model has been devised, IREDA has come forward and supported that. And I'm confirming in this platform, our ministry, the name is New and Renewable, always carry the challenges. Therefore, being the sole extended arm of MNRE, we are a, we integrate our thought and approach with our ministry to devise tools and mechanism how to address those challenges in the time to come with the support of global players, which they did in the past when the solar, wind, and hydro they were challenging how to handle and come up. Similar expectation we are having, and not only they are coming to handhold for enhancing the RE installed capacity, but also this RE investment is giving them a fairly and reasonable return, which will enable the global player to come forward. And post-COVID, globally, we are looked as, when the globe is looking at China plus one, India is the most preferred country as far as investment is concerned. Because of our sustainable governance, because of our culture, because of our respect for the investor to come to our country and ensure that safe return they are having. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So let me move to the private sector views now uh, and start with your views on reforms. Mr. Shivanand, if I may invite you, and Pinaki, you can follow up on this question as well. Sir, what are your views on? I mean, we are talking about longer term scenario of 2047. So, some of the advocacy you've already done, and ministries you've seen action on the ground from a policy perspective. But if you look at a long term view, you're aware that electricity amendment bill is also there in the place. But in general, what are your top 4 or 5 reform, agenda that you would like to see from a long term perspective, sir?
Yeah. Thanks, Sandeep. So first of all, I think we are actually awaiting for the Electricity Act amendment, which has been due for quite some time. Hopefully, we should be able to see that getting out because that's addressing a lot of fundamental issues, which are aimed at making sure that the financial stability of the distribution company is taken care, trying to keep out the element of subsidies and other things from the balance sheet of the DISCOMs, but moving it towards the state governments. That will actually help in terms of bringing the required financial stability of the distribution companies. That in turn would take away the risk of payment and everything else, and would again, the current LPS mechanism has given a lot of comfort, but end of the day, we need to make sure that the distribution companies are financially stable. So the reforms in that respect, already we have seen the draft in the Electricity Act amendment that should take care. Also, the encouragement of more investments coming from the private generators in terms of the open access and others strengthening, and a long-term trend towards reducing the cross subsidy that will really help in terms of consumer having a choice of where to buy and from whom to buy and at what price to buy. Additionally, on a long-term basis, I think if the planning could be started by Ministry of Power that we have requested, which is in terms of getting the smart meters in place as soon as possible, or look at the possibility of existing meters, whether they could be converted to smart metering, which would then enable the way for moving towards the current system in terms of tariffs towards peak tariff and time of the day tariff. That would actually help in terms of getting the demand corrected and also being able to manage the demand properly. And also a lot of planning can be done in terms of integrating the renewable energy to be able to move towards the energy transition. The other biggest aspect, in terms of the challenge that we are seeing today is not being able to get the power purchase agreements executed with the distribution companies. So getting somewhere, though of course the RPOs have been specified, enforcement, and really getting that planning. So one of the things potentially that could be looked at is aligning the complete RE trajectory planning with a sign off from the respective states along with their distribution companies, so that the uncertainty of bidding versus conversion to actual offtake gets eliminated. Then the other risk that we are currently seeing, which hopefully should get addressed, is in terms of the transmission networks and the substations not being available. So we have a lot of capacities getting stranded, and a lot of planning cannot take place today because we don't have enough transmission capacity coming up as well as the substations coming up. So that is going to make a lot of difference. We need transmission line and substations coming at least 2 years ahead of the bidding side, so that there is a certainty of actually the investments happening and being able to evacuate the power. One of the other things we've been talked about is around the carbon credit markets here. I think India is trying to develop. I think if we are able to find a way to develop that as soon as possible, I think that will really help India to create its own market and be able to have additionalities coming in terms of certainty of on the carbon credits being utilized and other things. And also it will help in terms of a lot of corporates which are planning to move towards net zero by taking those credits and being able to offset their carbon. One of the other last aspects with respect to the I would say reforms is how do we actually look at the distribution companies in the future? If you're going to have more and more corporate PPS or C&I segment actually penetrating the consumers of distribution companies, there's going to be a stress on the distribution companies. So we need to look at some, reforms towards content and carry, so that end of the day, distribution companies are financially viable to maintain the networks to deliver the power to the end consumers. So those were briefly a couple of points that I wanted
Thanks.
to make.
Pinaki, your thoughts, any additional point that you would like to mention from a reforms perspective?
I think so. Most of the points he has already covered. So I will basically talk about three things in terms of the CNI sector, what reforms could be done. Second is the balance between manufacturing and deployment, and touch a little bit on the financing side. So as far as the CNI sector is concerned, for us to get to the target by 2047, 50% of the energy is consumed by the industry. And so there have to be reforms in it, because the four business models that are there in the CNI sector are already present. So that is, one is behind the meter, which is not scaled too much, but there are certain states still restricting it. That has to go. Second is the intrastate open access, and that is an excellent way to use the STU capacity in different states, because there is no STU based bidding happening anymore. So that is perfect for any industrial consumer in the state to consume from the state. In fact, any state conferences I go to, I tell them, for example, I was at the Rajasthan summit, that I was telling them all the energy from Rajasthan is actually going out of the state. Why don't you use the energy from the state to power industry in the state? And that cost of power is 20 to 40% cheaper than the conventional source. So the intrastate open access, the reforms have been started, the green open energy open access rules. So state after state is adopting it, and we see it as a positive trend. I want to see all the 30 states adopt it to get to the goal. Third is the interstate open access. So interstate open access, again, the way the captive treatment will happen, there is some sort of haziness around it. There is no operating power plants on ISTS basis, which are actually selling on a captive model to a CNI customer. We are selling, for example, in one case to Amazon, but that's a long-term PPA. So that has to be clarified. And the fourth step to have energy transition for any corporate is the virtual PPA, which is a win-win solution because you're not taking a customer away from the discom, you're generating power in the country and putting it into the grid. There again, there is some haziness in terms of the viability of the transactions. So we have to do a lot of structuring, and this is an easy sort of process. This four-step theory to get to 100% energy transition for the corporates. On manufacturing, you had a question because as a company, we are in all the three areas: CNI, utility, and manufacturing. See, the 2047 goal is certainly there, but if we look a bit earlier than that, is the goal at on 2030. So that requires 50 gigawatts a year to be deployed on the ground. So how do you strike a balance between the pace at which you're deploying the capacity, the cost of electricity, and the localization? Although we are a manufacturer also in the PLI scheme, there has been a lot of stress only on the manufacturing side. Somehow we also have to focus on the deployment in the next 4 to 5 years because the issue remains that there is no export restriction for the capacity that we hear 50 gigawatt and 100 gigawatt that is there. So there is no restriction for the capacity to export. Now, for a generator to utilize the capacity, especially with a non-tariff barrier like ALMM, how do you get the panels and get to the 50 gigawatt a year sort of rollout? So that's a question the policymakers have to solve. And that's why we have been also saying that let's not do the same thing in cells. Let's put tariff barriers in terms of higher duties because when we reach this goal of 2047, we should also be the largest manufacturer in the country. But we have to strike this balance, how to sort of marry the because the cost of electricity also increases, right?
Yeah,
And those are things that the policymakers have to iron out.
sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
and last one to compliment Irida, who is also on the panel, because definitely on the financing side, I mean, obviously there are now a lot of international banks and institutions on the debt side that have come in, but the speed of sort of an organization Irida is fantastic. In fact, some of the largest American banks recently lost out to their speed in a recent transaction. So that is something we want to see more and more from the other PSU banks also. And because we need people, institutions like that who really understand the sector, who appreciate that going forward, the markets are going towards a merchant side also. And a merchant ISTS power plant is a fantastic sort of business proposition. So that's another sort of aspect I wanted to touch upon.
Thanks, Pinaki. So, Vipul, I'll invite you now. You've heard Shivanan talked about some of the top reform agendas, and transmission was, uh, one highlight. The entire issues around evacuation, ISTS. Pinaki also did mention about that. You are uniquely placed in a way that you've seen not just India, but you've also seen South Asia, East Asia, APAC, and other regions. Help us understand what are the learnings that we can draw from other markets on transmission to resolve some of the issues that we face as a sector in transmission in India.
Sure. Thanks, Sandeep. I think there are lots of lessons, and between industry and the ministry and CEA, people are, of course, very well aware and studying. But uh, from my perspective, I would say a few things. First of all, look, I think it's worth acknowledging that the grid progress in India, if you look at the last few years, has been phenomenal. Okay, so what PGCIL, CTU, ISTS, etc. have done is nothing short of phenomenal. Which is why today, if you look at the RE bids that are going on today, most people, if not all, actually have been able to secure the grid connectivity, which is something much more than we would have had a few years
I
back.
think we are uniquely placed that we have a national grid. No other country can boast
Absolutely.
of.
It is literally one of the most amazing assets built by humanity. I'm making a dramatic statement, but I'm ready to stand behind that. I don't think you can think of too many assets of this size, nature, etc. etc. But still, the fact is that today, if you want to go in for any major connectivity, I'm not talking about a few megawatts here and there. Today, if you want to go for ISTS connectivity, you're basically waiting till 2030. Maybe it's 29 on a best effort basis, but it could also be 2031. So now, if you're thinking about connectivity in 2030 and you're sitting in 2024, let's say end 24 or first half 25 or second half 25, if a developer has to bid, he's bidding 5 years ahead. Bid 5 years ahead for a project that's going to take 2 years to build. He's making a punt on prices 3 years ahead. I would love to meet the developers who are willing to take punts on interest rates, equipment prices, etc., etc., 3 years in advance for a project 5 years in advance. So the point I'm trying to make is that we really need to sort this out. Now, to my mind, there are four things that we can think about doing, right? One, we have to find some way or the other for the national grid to expand ahead of demand. Today, despite many improvements over the years, by and large, we are still falling short of building ahead of demand. If you take the numbers for what China is building this year, okay, in ultra HV or UHV lines alone, this year China State Grid is investing capex of 5.6 lakh crores.
But this is ahead of demand or this is following demand?
This is
That's the
all
key.
ahead of demand.
So it's sort of a merchant grid. Is that what you are?
No, it's not a merchant grid. It's a
Because they
grid.
have to identify tag and the entire ISTS. Yeah.
So they are going ahead and building the grid. The difference is they have found a way to compensate State Grid for the initial period of underutilization of capacity until demand picks up. Now, to me, if we agree that building ahead of demand is key, then we must find some way to compensate whoever's building the grid for some level of extra ROW that they must take, some level of extra towers, or some level of extra stringing that may have to happen. That's point number one. Point number two, I think if we look at execution time, from concept to commissioning, my sense is that the execution time is somewhere between 4.5 years. Whereas an RE project effectively takes 2 years. So we're basically, we're structurally behind time. So somewhere we need to find a way, including bidding time, to make it maybe 24 months or so, and actual execution maybe 18 months. That's the second priority. I'm not going to get into how it can be done. The industry, supported by such a supportive government, if the intention and the target is clear कि ये करना है, it can be done. Third point I would say is, of course, we have to also distribute generation, not just concentrate in a few areas. But this can't be the only step, because it's kind of sometimes the standard response we get. Okay, why are you all running to Rajasthan? Why are you all running to these 3-4 states? Go to other states. Now, if it is a state specific bid, that's okay. Of course, people will do. But if you have to be competitive on a national basis, then you have to go to where the resources. If you have to be competitive, for instance, one of the things that I look after these days is a hydrogen business, where if you want to be competitive on exports, then you have to be in the good resource areas. So I think the third piece is we do have to distribute generation um, uh, to ease the pressure on the grid, but do that within limits and within bounds. It won't be the full solution. And then the fourth I would say is, of course, we have to go to more and more intense transmission. HVAC is being talked about. HVDC, of course, is being rolled out. Again, I would urge us to set our sights at 500 gigawatts and beyond. Not think of the next round of investments, But think of the next 3, 4 rounds of investments. Again, to give you just a simple Google search will tell us today China has 19 already operating HVAC lines, 1,000 megawatt plus, 1,000 kV plus. 19 operating plus obviously a large number under construction. So I think we are no less ambitious in terms of our renewable program. If you look at what needs to get built in the next 5 years, 6 years to reach the targets that Sudeep and others were talking about, we'll have the demand to use it. So these are the 4 points I would
Sure,
make.
sure. Thanks, Samir. Akshay, I'll come to you on this, but just a follow-up question, Vipul, on CNI, since you touched upon distribution. Quick one. What are your learnings on CNI? Any suggestions on that?
I think, in my view, the risk reward profile for CNI relative to utilities has changed fundamentally in the last 1 or 2 years.
It has gone down.
It has gone down substantially compared to, and by the way, it's a good problem in a sense that
Good
because
problem for discoms, but why IPP?
well, I think uh, because the scale of what we have to achieve can be achieved faster. So I'll tell you what I mean by
Pinaki, you
this.
agree with this?
No, of course, Pinaki won't agree, but that's fair enough. But I'm giving you one perspective.
Retort after this.
Absolutely. No, see, to my mind, I think um, if you look at risk reward, one of the biggest advantages of CNI used to be that you would get paid on time. Right? Today, the risk of not getting paid on time, at least for the moment, is much less.
I see. Okay.
Then, if you add to it the scale that utility gives you, you add to it the risk of
Economies of
grid
course, yeah.
being actually taken on by the discoms, frankly, or by SECI being passed on, and longer term PPAs. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be business models that can create very cute businesses, very nice businesses.
Pinaki, which business models you
Right.
are relying on?
So
30 seconds, and then I have to invite Akshay.
So, see, I think so. We should not think in terms of always this mindset of do I have a bankable PPA? Will he pay it on time? That's a generation mindset. We're talking about energy transition. 50% of the energy is consumed by the commercial industrial customers. If they have an option that they can reduce their operating costs and electricity costs by 20 to 40%, they have to get that. So cannot stop it. And from an investor mindset, globally, CNI is actually attracting far more amount of capital than the utility sector. But we need both the things to happen in tandem.
Right.
That's why, as a business model, we are in both. So you cannot restrict any of these
Right.
areas.
Right. So I think industry is divided maybe because of the nature of capital and the vision that
They have to go green. So
yeah.
the discoms, if they're taking more time to sign the PPAs, they cannot wait, right?
Right. Right.
So that has to happen.
Right. I have Akshay. Akshay, sorry, I've come to you a little late, but you heard the other panelists, and you also come from a group which also has interest in transmission. So, same questions. I mean, policy reforms that you are expecting, CNI, your views, and also transmission. Any, quick comment and maybe 60 seconds.
No, two things. I think I have to echo the thought that transmission planning so far and what we've achieved in transmission in India, which is an integrated national grid, I think is it's an unimaginable feat that India has achieved, and it's replicated nowhere else in the world, right? I mean, I know some of the international developers who are building projects in the likes of US or Europe are actually waiting for 7 to 8 years for a direct transmission line to get built. Whereas here we're complaining about 2 or 3 years. So I think that's the difference that we sitting in India seem to ponder upon. But look, for me, there are four basic things that we need to address to give a complete fillip to the decarbonization efforts of India. One is demand side management. I mean, imagine all of us when EVs become a reality, charging our cars at 11:30, 12 in the afternoon when, solar generation at its peak, and paying the lowest cost for it. And then you're talking about like 10 paisa a kilometer. I mean, this is the demand side management that we have to get to, right? Encourage people to use power when it's the cheapest generated source. Two is we have to geographically diversify the generating base. Now, if that means we have to request SECI to have state-specific bids where assets can come up only in a specific state, so that the load on the transmission infrastructure is at its lowest. Because as I've learned, and we've been doing some analysis, because we also have a sister concern that does transmission, for every megawatt of power that's coming, marginal megawatt of power that's coming in Rajasthan, the cost of transmission infrastructure going into it is about 3 to 4 crores. That's like 1x of what you're spending on solar. Whereas if you were to distribute that geographically, sure, you'll spend more or you'll get lesser generation. But my sense is we'll still be better off as a nation on the cost of power if we geographically diversify that asset base. Uh, Third, I think we need a little more clarity and a little more. We need someone to be a little more bold on taking up contractual structures such as contract for difference, the virtual PPA. We still need a lot more regulatory clarity on these structures, because once we have these, we'll suddenly see an even bigger impetus on the RE generation and hence the decarbonization. And fourth, which I think everyone's been doing a great job, and big compliments to the entire government and all its agencies, um, is all the reform that we're planning to address, which is getting the discoms to be more financially stable, putting in certain conditions for that, giving more power to the load dispatch centers. I think some of these impacts will be felt on both the generating side industry and the consumers will benefit at the end. So this is what I think my sense is, and obviously there are new technologies coming up. If we can have some different models like PPPs, which can encourage the initial use of the technology till it becomes commercially viable, let the government be a stakeholder. And there are some states where we are paying a license fee to set up a renewable energy plant per megawatt basis. That is the government being a stakeholder. And if that license fee can be paid towards the end of the project rather than the beginning of the project, we'll see a lot more encouragement and involvement of the government as a stakeholder in our development. So these are
Thanks,
my
thanks,
bits.
thanks, thanks, Rakesh. So Rakesh, you represent an organization which is facing the heat right on the ground, right? And you what the challenges that developers talked about is essentially, you're facing it live. So I have two questions for you. Uh, One is around talk about, and we are short of time, so keep it a little crisp because we have audience questions also now coming up. Um, Talk about some specific execution challenges, top execution challenges that you face, and what are your suggestions around that? And the other thing is around, you also look at the supply chain, bought out components, etc. So which are the pain points on the RE components that the government should look at?
Yeah. So, Sandeep, the challenges most of the developers have already touched upon. It starts from connectivity, land, financing to an extent, getting it at a competitive rates. From execution, the other challenge which I see on ground execution would be around ROWs. So transmission connectivity people are talking, but getting ROWs is a very big pain point. If you see a report by PFC, 40%, 45% of the project delays are because of ROW related issues. So transmission and ROW issues do deter a project. And if we have a policy or CA works in collaboration with Ministry of Power to play to roll out, I would say, a uniform transmission and ROW policy, because right now the ROW regulations are governed by each state on an independent basis. But ultimately, it's one grid, one nation we are talking
Right.
about.
And what about the component supply chain? Any
So,
suggestions? Any challenges?
PLI has been quite a good success. It has helped bolstering India's dominance in solar PV modules and battery energy storage system. Keeping it short, I will say the other areas which needs PLI support, one would be around wind components. So we are primarily focusing still on imports for blades, nacelles, even generating stations. In terms of green hydrogen, when people are focusing the electrolyzers, the cost needs to be subsidized. So we need to promote be it PEM or alkaline electrolyzers. Government support would help boost the generation in India, dependency, lack of dependency on imports, increase our financial structures. And last would be around battery storage. As we target to achieve 300 gigawatt hours of storage, we need some sort of PLI support to promote R&D work in this field as well and to work on the components.
Thank you, Rakesh. So we open the question round, audience question round. If organizers can just pass the mic or sir, yeah. So there's one mic, one question over there as well.
Thank you, sir. My question is, all of you have discussed in detail a lot of issues which are there in the renewable sector. My first question, and there's a sub question to it about land. What is the position on land acquisition from the states? Are they giving you land very easily, or land is an issue, or are state governments giving you that land and acquiring it and giving it to you? Because my understanding is land is becoming a major issue. That's the first thing. Second one was on electrolyzers. I was hoping Vipul Tuli would talk a little bit more about the future plans on how we'd be getting green hydrogen and green ammonia and stuff. So a little bit more on that would be fantastic for the audience and us.
Shivanand, you can pick up the land and maybe, yeah, Shivanand can just.
You're absolutely right. Land and right of ways, as mentioned by colleague Rakesh, are the biggest challenges going forward for execution of these projects. Because as we speak today, also land and right of ways are becoming a major issue. So, in terms of most of the land that we are getting into is towards private land. We have been requesting MNRE and MOP also to look into and coordinate with states, look at the possibilities of wastelands being used for development of these projects, and also make it quite simpler. Apart from availability of land, the other major issue that developers face today is the ceiling limits and the conversion of the land from an agricultural to a non-agricultural. Different states have different processes. Like for example, Rajasthan, it is considered to be deemed NA, but whereas in Karnataka and other states, you need to go and apply. So those are the challenges. We have been requesting, and of course, ministry has been quite kind to arrange certain discussions. But I agree with you, there is a lot of work to be done. And in addition to that, right of way is one of the other biggest challenges. Though there has been a circular issued with respect to the transmission line, but we don't have that, for example, for a solar plant or for a wind plant. Wind plant actually is far more tougher to execute because you are spread in a vicinity of 50 to 100 kilometers with 33 kV network going along and acquiring footprints. So what we have requested is actually the ministry to set up some kind of a district administration who gives out a clear guideline value and is able to bring in law and administration to support the execution. Without that, the challenges will continue to increase.
Can I add something? So,
Pinaki, just a
yeah,
sec. I'm Harry Dol from
uh,
IPPI. I just want to say, will we meet our targets? Because there's land issue. Because everyone's talking about so much in 2030 and so much from 2047. What are we looking at?
So, in terms of availability of land, basically non-fertile lands are available, but it is the ease of acquisition and ease of right of ways can actually ensure that projects don't suffer on the ground. Basically, the rules around land acquisition, the conversion, and the ceiling, if they are removed, and if there are administrative guidelines and a law and administration support is given, I don't see a challenge in terms of, because there's a lot of non-fertile lands available in this country and wasteland available in this country. That's huge. In fact, we have given data on that also. So all we need is to get the transmission planning in place, get these regulations, as I mentioned, in place. Then I think we should be home.
I'll need to have one more question. Sir, gentlemen, please
Sure.
stand up and maybe just pass the mic to him.
Yeah, I will.
please.
Vipul had to answer on the green this thing,
Yes.
the green hydrogen.
No, I think maybe just a very short blurb, which is we have from my perspective, we get to see green hydrogen competitiveness in several countries. And I'm very happy and proud to state that if you look at the country that can be the fastest and the most competitive to get started with green hydrogen globally. Today, India is one of them. I think longer term, as India's own demand fructifies and as scale benefits come in, probably the scale may move to other countries like the Middle East and so on. But the speed with which the Indian government has moved in terms of allowing wind and solar to connect on the national grid, the quality of our coastline and ports, etc., we are in a really good place. Of course, it's these things take time to mature because changing fuels is not so easy for customers and so on. So, but I think we're going to see a lot of action in the coming 12 months. One implication you should be clear about for the renewable sector, though, is that the scale of renewables that will be required if green hydrogen takes off, or I should say, when green hydrogen takes off, is an order of magnitude higher. 1 million tons of ammonia will require somewhere between 3 to 5 gigawatts of renewable capacity, depending on how you build it. So that, in fact, if anything, adds to the importance of the discussion we're having today.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
No,
Sir,
let's take.
sir,
Can I
this
add
said, I
something
have
on
a
the
question.
land actually? Can I add something on the land?
Yeah, please,
See,
please.
because we've been
Short,
acquiring
because I have.
just
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, short.
So because this is a point I wanted to make, because see, we have been acquiring land in almost 21 states. It's not just one or two states. And conference after conference, this question is put up. And we continue to tell the government that we need kind of support and all. But I don't see anything tangible happening actually. I mean, there were days where there were solar park bids that were held. Now, be it Rajasthan, be it Gujarat, be it Eastern India, everywhere the generator has to acquire their own land. I mean, in a way, we have become Atmanirbhar. In fact, now land acquisition is our responsibility. Last mile connectivity is our responsibility. Even if you see the FDRE bids, essentially the FDRE bids are also combining that as SLDC's responsibility actually. Now you're seeing these bids where we have to combine solar, wind, storage, and everything to have the dispatch, and then there are penalties also if you don't do it. So I think so. There's too much of this Atmanirbharism imposed on the power developers and generators, and financing is obviously our responsibility. And now we are manufacturing our own cells and panels because that's also something that's not available. So I think so. The government has to step in and take over some of the aspects with a pace which justifies this ambition to do 50 gigawatts a year. Otherwise, it will be
Right.
just talk.
Sure.
And even for manufacturing, I am a strong proponent of the CPSUs should get into polysilicon to module manufacturing, like a BHEL can do a
Right.
10 gigawatt factory.
Right.
I mean, I started my career there. I know they can do sell steam turbines, gas turbines, and that's an issue that we need to solve. Otherwise, this will be a discussion in conferences every time.
Sure, sure. Got you. Sir,
Sir,
please go ahead.
I think
please.
Pinaki,
Yeah.
a government is putting more faith in the private sector capability to solve the problem.
No, but sir, you're putting, see, SECI has been doing its job. You can say it's putting the faith, but let's say we are acquiring thousands of acres of land in Rajasthan. Now, at the same time, suppose the substation is delayed. We sit with the lease rental payments for the land, and then we have to run from pillar to post to make the the sort of extensions through CERC mechanism. So I
You
would
can you
say,
can you can run from pillar to the post and solve the problem. The government sector cannot do it to deal with the government itself.
no, I know what I am trying to say is that see, we are taken up the responsibility as a company. We are even manufacturing now. So, but not every company is sort of equipped to do that. I mean, there are only 4 or 5 large players who can do that, but we need at least 50 such companies to get to the goal, right? So, what I'm trying to say is that certain things, especially the manufacturing sector, we should see more CPSUs getting into
Yeah,
manufacturing.
I think Pinaki,
That's
you made a
important.
point. Let's just, because I'm short of time, I'm getting prompters. Sir, your question, please. Sir.
Yes, sir.
Please be very brief.
Yes,
Just point
yes,
your
sir.
questions.
I'm Dr. Jagdish Shivhare, professor and ex-scientist, ISRO. Sir, I have a general question. What specific innovation practices, disruptions, and smart decision-making technologies are being incorporated by renewable energy sector to prepare an ambitious, bold, and transformative agenda to reach the goals of Viksit Bharat at 2047.
So you, just to summarize, you want to give us a perspective on RE technologies, right, for future. So I think it's partly answered. The panel discussed about green hydrogen, battery storage as the emerging technologies. Any other question? Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, I have a small question.
This will be the last if we have. Yeah.
Sir, I'm Jitendra Kumar Meena. I'm director at CA. So it is actually answer of my one of friend's question I asked. I just curiously asked him, ki, what happens if we cover whole of the Thar desert with solar plate? Then he answered that from that very year, there will not be any rain in India because Thar desert is responsible for attraction of northwest monsoon, southwest monsoon because of that pressure and temperature creation. So that's my question to RP Gupta sir and Sudeep Jain sir. How we tackle this policy framework while going forward for this energy transition?
We will be tackling another climate change after we have covered the earth with solar panels, right? There will be a lot of change in the weather pattern. So let us see when we will come to that problem, we will solve that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I think we are really short of time. We are overboard. Maybe one final point. Yeah.
We have been constantly raising a lot of issues, but I think on behalf of all the generators, I would like to, you know, appreciate and, especially Chairman CS sir. He's been so, we go with all the issues. He hears us patiently and, looks at all the issues and tries to find, I think collectively there's an excellent way of working that we have. Also with MOP as well as MNRE, the amount of interactions that we have today, the pace of solutions might be taking time, but I think we have, seen the intent to resolve, intent to hear us on a constant basis. That is what is really making a difference, and that is why India is today one of the biggest, attractive country for most of the investments coming. I'm sure we'll solve as we move along, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the organizers. Thank you.
Just
Thank you
also
very much indeed. And ladies and gentlemen, that calls for a round applause, a bigger applause for all the dignified dignitaries. As I request Shri A. Balan, Honorable Member Planning, CEA, to kindly do the honors of presenting a token of gratitude and appreciation to our distinguished panelists. We present to Shri R.P. Gupta, Sir, Chairman and Managing Director, SCCI. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for sparing your valuable time and being here with us. We present to Shri Sudeep Jain, Additional Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India. We thank you, sir, for all those valuable inputs we had from your end. We present to our session moderator, Shri Sandeep Narang, Director Strategy and Transaction, ENY. Thank you, sir, for wonderfully moderating that session. We present to Shri Pradeep Kumar Das, Chairman and Managing Director, IREDA. Thanks, sir, for all those valuable insights we had from you. Shri Shivanand Nimbargi, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Ayana Power. Thank you very much indeed, sir. We present a token of gratitude to Shri Vipul Tuli, Chairman South Asia and Chief Executive Officer, Hydrogen Business and Middle East, Semcor Industries. We present to Shri Pinaki Bhattacharya, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, MPIN Energy Transition. Thank you. We present a memento to Shri Rakesh Khaitan, Chief Financial Officer, Mahindra Sustain. And to our panelists, Shri Akshay Hiranandani, Chief Executive Officer, Serentica Renewables. Thank you very much indeed. And may I invite Mr. Arpan Gupta from FICCI to do the honors of presenting a token of gratitude and appreciation to our eminent speaker, Shri A. Balan, Honorable Member, Planning CA. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that wonderful presentation we had from you as the context setting for this session. Thank you, Mr. Arpan Gupta, for doing the honors. And may I request for a group photograph before we close the proceedings? Thank you very much indeed. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we close the proceedings of this session as well as day one of this event. Tomorrow, I would like to inform we begin the first session at 9:30 a.m. We would request everybody to be kindly here in time and be seated by 9:30 for the first session of the day. Thank you very much indeed for your participation on today's event. We look forward to having each one of you joining us tomorrow as well. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening ahead. Safe drive home. Good evening and namaskar.